welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. It is the end of June, year 2021, and this is episode 62. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new here, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. In the intro part of this video, you will have seen a little bit of garden footage, some nature hiking, and some yummy eats were in there. The bowl with the shaved ice in Taiwanese is called swapping, and it's basically translated to shaved ice, but it's not like snow cone ice, it's like fluffier and lighter. The one I had in the bowl was slightly melted, so it like kind of formed into more ice chunks instead of a light fluffy ice. But traditionally you enjoy it with like fresh fruit, adzuki beans, condensed milk, there's different toppings, boba, and in the bowl that I had fresh papaya and homemade strawberry jam. The strawberry jam I made from strawberries that we had picked earlier. So super fun. Of course the kids wanted to try out the new to us shaved ice maker that was passed on to us from an auntie on a day that happened to be really chilly. I mean, not cold, but it was like in the 60s, whereas previously it was like in the 90s. But anyway, it'll be put to good use all summer. I will have also put in some footage of what's blooming in our garden right now. So the delphiniums are blooming and the lilies are blooming. Some of the lilies are like 5 feet tall. It is so exciting. Of course, they're also right at deer height. So the ones that have survived are in the front yard. The ones that are that we kind of have to keep an eye on and chase off the deer and the bunnies are in the backyard. So that's just how it goes. And there's also, I think will put in a picture of some salad greens that we have been growing. So that is super fun. We have lots of Swiss chard and spinach and green onions and cilantro. And the kids love going out there and picking a giant bowl full, and everybody enjoys it. Everybody eats it. It's so good. There's just nothing like homegrown food. To go from like the seed to planting it, to watering it, to watching it change and grow every day, and then being able to eat it and then have it continue to grow through the season. There's just something so magical and of course delicious about it. So yeah, I think that's everything that I had inserted in the beginning there, or will have inserted in the beginning. I do have a couple of finished projects to share with you today and a couple of works in progress. One of them is a new cast on since last time. Of course, once I cast something off, I cast something on. And then some of the other projects that I maybe haven't worked on as much recently, I'll just save for a future episode where I can show you some more progress on it and talk a little bit more about where I am at with those projects. Yeah, so should we get started? Grab a beverage, grab something to work on. Oh, and my videos are fully captioned, but YouTube takes sometimes a couple of days to get the auto captioning uploaded. So once that is uploaded, then I can go in and edit and add in video descriptions and stuff like that. So depending on when you are watching, if they aren't up yet, usually I can get in there and edit within a week. It just kind of depends on when YouTube gets the auto captioning uploaded. So, and then also links to things that I talk about will be in the description box below. I will have links to the designer or yarn dyer's website on there. And then all of the projects that I talk about will have links also in the description box below. And those are to Ravelry project pages, and it will be distinctly marked on there that that is what those go to. Alright, so the first project I'd like to share with you is the one that I am wearing. It is the Mount Pleasant Tee by Megan of Pip and Pin. She is a Canadian designer, and I have been wanting to knit this pattern since it came out. I don't know, it's been just a year or a couple of years, but it is a fingering weight tee knit bottom up, and it is meant to be a cropped length, though you can knit it to whatever length you would like. There is waist shaping, there's a little bit of a lace hem, and what else? It is knit on US 5 or 3.5 millimeters for the cuffs, like the ribbing sections and the hem, and then it is knit on US 5 or 3.75 millimeters for the rest. Of course, if your gauge differs, you may change your needle size. I did get gauge on the needle sizes recommended, and that gauge is 24 stitches by 32 rounds for 4 inches of stockinette blocked in the round. I will say that I did not do a gauge swatch for this project. The reason being that I was going to be playing yarn chicken from the beginning. And yes, I know that I can always unravel a swatch, but then if you do knit it in the round, then you end up cutting the yarn up the back, which then means you cannot use that yarn anymore. I will say that I don't always knit my swatches in the round since I find my gauge to be the same knit flat or in the round. Of course, that can also change just depending on my mood or what is going on. So I did not swatch. I do recommend swatching for garments, but I didn't do it this time. So I used Onyx Fiber Arts fingering. It is dyed by Adria, and this colorway is Sophia, and it is 100% superwash merino. It is a light fingering weight. It is 490 yards for 100 grams. Now, when I weighed my original cake of yarn, it was 110 grams, which then would give me about 540 yards. And in the pattern for the size 2 that I was going to be knitting, I think it, let me see, it approximated 544 yards for that size. So I was going to be squeaking it by. Now, I don't remember reading in the pattern if there was a 10% yardage allowance in there, which I know a lot of the patterns do. So that could have been factored in, giving me a little more wiggle room. But of course, if you make any adjustments or your gauge is just slightly off, then that will greatly affect your yardage. I am happy to say that I won at Yarn Chicken, and I knit my entire fingering weight tee in one skein. Now, just so you know, of course, like I had mentioned, it was a light fingering, so in my 110 gram skein to begin with, I had 540 yards. This is what I have left. This tiny little nugget is less than 3 grams, and I just love this color so much. It is like a tan toned pink, and I feel like this is my perfect neutral pink. I feel like all the colors have some sort of neutral color to it, or maybe I'm just biased because I feel like pink or pinky browns are kind of my neutral, but I just love this color so much. Again, it is like a tan toned pink. The colorway is Sophia, and this feels so good to wear. Now I will stand up a little bit so you can see the hem. So you start from the bottom up, and you start with your smaller size needles. You knit this lace repeat on the bottom, and I will say I am not a lace knitter, but this lace was enjoyable. And I find myself saying that a lot on here about my finished projects, but it's true. And I probably wouldn't pick a project with lace on it that I think wouldn't be enjoyable for me. So I'm happy that this did not disappoint. It worked out really well. If you wanted to lengthen it, you could add more lace repeats on there in addition to lengthening the body. I don't think I did any modifications. I might have knit my body slightly longer. I don't remember if I printed out the, oh, here it is. For the sizes, she does give you a finished measurements of the bust, waist, and length, which I do find really helpful. And my length ended up being like ½ an inch longer, which I did account for that when I was measuring out my yardage and stuff just to see if I could make it work. I wanted the lace, the end of the lace hem to hit right above my hip or right at my hip, and that's exactly what it blocked out to be. For the second size that I knit, the finished circumference is supposed to be 34 inches. The waist circumference is 32.5 inches, and the length should be 15.5 inches, or that's what it's written for. And my measurements blocked out came to be 16 inches for my length, 34 inches for the bust, so that part was right on. And let's see, 32 inches at the waist, which is only half an inch off, but depending on how you block it, you could easily block it out farther or longer or whatever you would like. I didn't pin anything. I just, soaked it and then rolled it in a towel to squeeze out the water and then laid it out flat to dry. So I'm sure if you blocked it to your specific measurements, you could get it more accurate, but when I'm wearing it, it's going to be doing whatever it wants on my body, so I don't bother pinning the garment. So yeah, this was a super enjoyable knit. I made it in about 2-ish weeks, maybe a little bit longer. And I highly recommend this pattern. It is so comfortable. I have to say there are a lot of ends to weave in, and I think that's just the nature of a bottom-up sweater with shaping, because you're going to end up knitting, in the round for your body, but then splitting for the front and back. So then you have like half of your stitches on holders, and then you're going to have shaping for like the neck or the shoulder area. So then you're going to have more stitches on holders and cutting your yarn and rejoining and things like that. But I feel like for shaping purposes, to have a garment that fits well on your body, that's just kind of what comes with it, right? Although I have to say I really enjoy top-down sweaters as well, which have a lot less ends to weave in, and those fit me well too. So it's just the construction of the garment. There is a beautiful seam here on the shoulder for when you are joining your front and back, and then you do knit the cuffs in the round. I did my neckline first before doing the arms. I think in the pattern it has you do the arms first, then the neckline, but I don't think it really matters. Plus, I was playing yarn chicken at that point, and I wanted to make sure I could get the neckline in, and that way if I needed to do perhaps a different color or something for the sleeve cuffs, that I could, versus like running out halfway in the neckline. I didn't really like that idea. So yeah, super comfortable. I am wearing it with linen pants that have an elastic waist that can be worn higher, and I feel like that works really well for where this hits, because it has like a more of a ruffled edge on my pants, and a drawstring tie in the front. Having any shirt that's a little bit longer ends up kind of being bunchy at the waist area, so it works really well for this cropped top where there's like a level of interest kind of on the bottoms and for the top, and they both get to be shown. So yeah, I recommend this pattern if you wanted to try out a summer tee that is in fingering weight. Alright, the next project I would like to share with you are a pair of socks. I finished these a little while ago, but I wanted to talk about them closer to the release date, or after they're released. I think they're being released soon. These are the Win Some socks by Melissa of Homebody Fibers. And these are so fun. They are ribbed, but they have like a patterning to the ribbing. And I knit mine using Knit Picks Felici in Windbreaker colorway. And for my contrast cuff, I used West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. And yeah, they turned out really well. She recommends a gauge of 8 stitches per inch on US 2 or 2.75 millimeter needles. I did knit these using 9-inch circulars, and I only switched to magic loop for the toes, but otherwise I did the heel and everything on the 9-inch circulars. Yeah, it's a fun pattern. I find the ribbing really stretchy and comfortable, and I think ribbing on socks is a great way to accommodate more sizes as well. So if someone has narrower feet or wider feet, like a ribbed sock can still be really comfortable. So I feel like this pattern would be really good for gift knitting as well as for yourself. I believe it comes in 3 sizes, and I knit the second size, which is labeled as the medium. And what else? I used 54 grams of the main color here and 8 grams of the contrast color for a total of 270 yards, and I have a great pair of socks. So keep a lookout for this pattern release on Melissa's Instagram, and yeah. All right, what do you have in your mug or cup today? I have a decaf cold brew with maple syrup and soy milk, and it is so good. It will be in the high 80s today and high humidity. I think this morning it was like 80% humidity. It was not foggy, it was not misty, it was just already hot and sticky. And I watched two bunnies run around the garden in the backyard this morning. At the time, I think they were just eating clover in the grass, so I didn't have to potentially chase them off from eating, like, I don't think they're the ones that are eating the cone flowers. I feel like the deer might be the ones eating those, but not sure. We try to plant things that are bunny and deer resistant, but I feel like nothing is really bunny or deer resistant. They will eat pretty much anything. Anyway, on to the works in progress. I would love to share with you my summer solstice socks. If you're wondering, I keep a notebook for my projects, and it is how I like to keep organized. A lot of times I prefer things, I'm like a pencil paper person. Pen, pencil, paper. I like having a place to write and draw out ideas. I don't like having to rely on the computer or internet, my phone, or something digital all the time. I don't know, maybe it's just the times that I grew up in. I mean, we didn't have internet growing up. I didn't have, you know, a smartphone. Or any cell phone until I was 18, and even then it was like a Nokia brick phone, so you could hardly do anything. Texts, I think, were still like 10 cents a text, and it was like, I don't know what kind of keyboard you call it to have to like text anything, but it wasn't exactly easy to do that either. I digress. So here's my project notebook. I jot down ideas, I jot down color like combinations or inspiration things. And yeah, so summer solstice socks. These I am knitting out of yarn dyed by Sarah of Less Traveled Yarn in the colorway Vice. This bright hot pink is blowing out quite a bit in the camera. I think it's just so bright and vibrant. And then my main color is dyed by Nakia of Wild Star Fibers. This is her logo. And the colorway I'm using is called X Factor. It is in her Supernova sock, fingering weight 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, 437 yards for 100 grams. And I absolutely love this colorway so much. It reminds me of late summer nights, you know, when the sun doesn't set till like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. You've got this like indigo-y blue that the sky is fading to, and you've got the peachy pink clouds, and the lightning bugs are coming out, and hopefully the mosquitoes are leaving you alone because you have some sort of citronella candle lit or something. But yeah, I just love the plummy purples and the blues and the peaches and the pinks in here. Love this colorway so much. Now, you might be curious to see how it is knitting up. Here it is. This variegated yarn has a little bit of micro striping going on, kind of between where the color is pooling beautifully. So I did my folded cuff again that I did on those other summery socks that I showed in the last episode. So what I do is I start with the contrast color, and I knit 16 rounds of stockinette in the contrast color, break that yarn, join the main color. I knit 12 rounds with the main color. Then I fold the wrong sides together and I pick up from the cast on edge and knit the two pieces, the two edges, I guess, together. And I do an Old Norwegian cast on. And with this one I did a 60 stitch cast on. And I'm using 9-inch circulars on US 1 2.25 millimeter Chavu needles. And yeah, I am doing these a little bit different from the last ones, where the last one had ribbing along the top. This one I'm just doing all stockinette. And I did a shadow wrap heel. I'm following the shadow wrap heel pattern from Denise of Earth Tones Girl Socksploration Shadow Wrap Heel pattern. I highly recommend it. I think these might be my 6th pair of socks with these heels, and I did test knit her pattern, and I love how clear it is. There's written instructions as well as photographs as well as video tutorials on her website. So 3 ways to learn this wonderful heel. Yeah, so I am just starting the foot here, and I have a second one, and here you go. It looks like the pooling is even, like, it's kind of similar between the two socks, so that's kind of cool. It's doing kind of like a little bit of micro striping in the one section, and then it kind of pools the blue in between, so that's kind of neat. And the progress keepers I have on here are made by my friend Maria of Woolen Forest. Her Etsy shop is Forest Charm. This one has a crescent moon on it with a moonstone. And then this one has a kyanite gem on it. And then these are housed in a project bag that I made. And the colors match, which means when I look at the project bag, I know what's inside. And then the back has the floral fabric that kind of matches the front. Yep, so love these socks. These will probably be done by the next time I chat with you. I love these little short socks. I need more of the little short socks. All winter and fall I was knitting pretty long socks because they're perfect for pulling up over leggings. But now that it's summer, I still do wear socks, especially like at night or early in the mornings. And it's just nice to have a short pair of socks to throw on. So that is that. All right, the second work in progress I would like to share with you is a new cast on from last time. So of course, since I cast off my Mount Pleasant tee, I needed to get another summer tee immediately on the needles. I did talk about the Rocket tee last time, but I didn't cast that one on yet. I cast a different one on. It is in this project bag that I sewed, and I love this fabric. I had my the grain shawl that I was working on, I think, in this bag, but that's getting a little bit big, so I swapped that with another bag and put this one in here. So I am knitting the V-back tee, the DK weight version by Jamie of Knitosophy. You know how there's some words that you say over and over again, and the more you say it, the less it seems to sound right? Well, anyway, it will be up here on the screen if you would like to look it up. But I love Jamie's patterns. The reason I love them is because she spells everything out for you. She explains what she's doing. She gives you schematics. She gives you lots of measurements. They are size inclusive. She leaves nothing out. So like this pattern is, let me see how many pages, like 13 or 14 pages. But she gives you like all the finished measurements. I feel like that's super helpful, especially if you are going to want to customize it to fit your body, right? So if you only have like a chest circumference to go by, that doesn't tell you anything about yoke depth. That doesn't tell you anything about sleeve circumference. That doesn't tell you anything about how long it is. And this pattern is not like that. This pattern gives you all the measurements that you need, which is super helpful. And in fact, she even tells you if you are going to lengthen it by an inch, like your body will need approximately this much extra yardage. And that is really helpful, especially if you're like purchasing yarn and you don't know if you need that extra skein or not. It makes a big difference. So this pattern comes in 10 sizes, and I am knitting the size 2, and the size 2 is for a 32-inch chest circumference for a finished circumference of 33 inches, which will give me 1 inch of positive ease. It is knit on needles US 6, which is a 4mm, and US 8, which is a 5mm. Smaller needle is for the ribbing, bigger needle is for the main part of the body, and it is DK weight. I love a DK weight sweater. I'm already thinking that right now this one I'm knitting in 3 colors of DK, but imagine a fingering weight marled version. So I wouldn't do any of like the color transitions that are in the pattern, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I would just hold fingering weight double and just keep swapping it out as I run out of each yarn. Yes! Okay, so DK weight pattern, and let's see. I'm not going to show you anything from the pattern specifically because it is a paid for pattern, but let's see here. I will show you my yarns and then talk a little bit about what I have started. So my yarn is dyed by Gwen of Bella Filato Studio, and this came in like a mystery grab bag set, and so they don't have like colorway names or anything, but I absolutely adore these 3 colors together. So the first color I used was this one. It is a cream base and with heavy speckling of like purple, close to black, maybe black, a kind of a reddish orange. It is beautiful. I love it. Now this one's already cut because I am done with it already. Second color I am using is this beautiful peach color. There's some lavender and pink washes in there. Absolutely love it. Third color that I'm using is this beautiful vibrant purple. And this one's more solid tonal. So I've got a speckled, kind of a wash variegated, and then a tonal. This one is knit top down, and it's got interesting shaping to it, so I'm learning something new, which is always fun and interesting. It's kind of bunched up right now because I've got a little bit to go before I split for the sleeves, but it always gets a little bunchy before that. So this is the start. You'll see this V-neck here. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up wearing the V in the front or the back, but the way it's written, you can wear it either way, which I love that versatility of having kind of like 2 sweaters in one. So you do this V all the way down, and I've just started my first color transition here, and it isn't like a fade, it's like a pattern for the color transition section. And it looks so pretty. I love how the speckles have worked up, and now that I have gotten the color transition in, I really like how these colors are all playing together. And of course I have progress keepers and stitch markers on here by Maria of Woolen Forest. And yeah, I don't know if I have much else I can say about this currently, but I'm really enjoying how this is knitting up. It is nice to knit a DK weight sweater, considering I just finished a fingering weight one. And yeah, I will show this progress. This one will probably not be done by the time I am back on here chatting with you, unless I don't come back in a few weeks, but we shall see. It is a tee, so there's not like a lot of sleeves to do. I'm not one to really complain about Sleeve Island since I started knitting socks, because sleeves are just like big socks without a heel or anything like that. It's just like the leg part, right? So yeah, so I guess we'll see where I get to by the time I am back on here, but I'm really enjoying this knit. And like I said, her patterns are written so well. They leave nothing out for you to be guessing about. And the formatting is also very clear in the pattern. Like, she has a lot of negative space between like different sections. She links to different video tutorials. She gives you equations for modifying length, and yeah, I really admire the way she writes her patterns. She takes the time also to write out like stitch counts. So if you finish an increase round, this is where you should be as far as your stitch counts and between the markers and for all the different sizes. And I really appreciate that, because I typically do that on my own, because I like to have a check, like a checkpoint. Okay, I just did an increase round, where should I be at before I continue? Because I don't want to get to the end of like a giant section, like maybe the entire yoke, and then realize I am off by however many stitches, because then I can't even figure out where I made my mistake to rip back, and then it just gets super frustrating. So she provides everything. I love it. I'm a big fan. So if you are even a beginner garment knitter, I highly recommend looking at Jamie's patterns. All right, the last thing I wanted to share with you is not a knitting project. It is the book that I am reading, Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. I'll put up the cover of the book here on the screen. It is a historical fiction book published in 2017. And it is so good, like so good in that it is heartbreaking, but there's like great character development. It follows the lives of a Korean family through 4 generations, and it starts in the early 20th century and goes up into the 1980s. It is based in Korea and Japan, and so my family is not Korean or Japanese. My family is from Taiwan, and I am born to immigrant parents from Taiwan, and there are some similarities and experiences in this book to what my family has experienced as well, because when Korea was under Japanese occupation, so was Taiwan. And from the brief times that I've talked to my parents about, the past and things like that, they don't like to talk about it a lot. They said, yes, it was super challenging. People were very, very poor. For example, like my grandparents have attended just through elementary school because they needed to work to help support the family. My parents have said that education was like your only way up and out to go find a living or leave or find opportunities elsewhere. And that if you weren't Japanese, then you were like a second-class citizen. You weren't worth like anything. And in this book, it talks about very similar feelings and ways that different cultures have kind of intertwined as far as food goes as well, and just the different feelings, and I don't know, it's intense. I won't lie, there was at one point where I read, it was maybe like halfway through the book, where I had to pause for a few days because it was just a little much. But now I am close to the end. I would say I'm like 80% of the way through the book, and yeah, it's a really good read. I highly recommend it. What are you reading? Are you reading anything fun this summer? I really enjoy a good book. I can really get lost in a good book, and if it was up to me, I could read for hours and hours and hours in one sitting, but I do have young children, and that just isn't always feasible unless I decide to stay up all night and read, which I've done before. Well, I don't pull all-nighters, but I have stayed up way past my bedtime reading, because you just get lost in the book, and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, what time is it? I better go to sleep or I will not be fully present the next day. So yeah, I recommend Pachinko by Min Jin Lee if you like historical fiction or yeah, a good read. So with that, cheers to being creative. I hope you are doing really well, and I will talk to you next time. Take care. Bye.